so sorry for that cliffhanger in the last video. I can be kind of a shyster sometimes. Be sure if you haven't watched part 1 of this video to go back and watch it so you have the context for this. But now let's continue on with our story. So when we left off, I had just arrived at Lost Lake Campground and the sun was setting and there were no campsites available. And my mind was like, it's too late to go out on the gravel roads to find a spot. Can I park on the side of the road, even though it's not a camping area, outside of the campsite? Will I get in trouble with local law enforcement if I do that? And ultimately, if I leave the campsite, am I going to be safe? And so I didn't really know what to do. Then I ended up chatting with someone who was also camping there. I don't really know how we started talking. I don't know how we crossed paths. Like, I have no memory of this. I just know that this kind man heard me, he heard about my situation, and he let me use one of the parking spots right next to his camper that he had at his campsite. And it was just so gracious and generous of him because I honestly had no idea what I was going to do. I didn't have a plan B. In typical camper fashion, we sat around a fire, shared stories, and each had our respective dinners, and then I car camped while he went back to his camper, and I slept through the very, very cold night in my car. Not sleeping well because of the cold, I rose early and I left to take some photos in the general area to see if I could get some lovely morning light pictures. Then I returned back to the campground where I got a gorgeous landscape photo of that magnificent Lost Lake nestled by the mountains. And I brushed my teeth outside in the sunshine, one of my favorite camping activities to do. I made some coffee, and then I said my goodbyes and thank yous to my camping neighbor, and then went on my merry way to my next destination of Maroon Bells in Aspen. Not exactly knowing my way how to get there, I, in good faith, just made myself back out to the gravel road, followed it until eventually I got to a highway that I recognized on the map. I made my way from there to Carbondale, Colorado, where I had just the best pit stop. I had coffee from a local coffee shop, and I stopped in a local farmer's market, which was just kismet. It made me so happy. I bought some pottery there from a local potter. And then I also stopped at a used outdoor gear shop and got myself a much warmer sleeping bag. So I left Carbondale feeling ready for whatever it was Maroon Bells had to offer me. So Lost Lake Campground was like mostly desolate. There were only the campers there. There weren't really tourists to speak of. And Aspen was the opposite. It was crawling with people. The highway that I was using to get into the forest where I'd be camping had a ton of like bicycle riders on it and hikers, and it was just not what I was expecting at all, but I should have. My campsite in White River National Forest was surrounded by immaculate aspen trees with their wiggling gold leaves in the breeze, and it was just so beautiful. I hung out at my campsite for a little while, read a book, and then made my way to Maroon Bells parking lot so that I could hang out there until sunset. And my goodness, it was so beautiful. I am so glad that I followed the recommendations to go to that spot.
Hi guys, I am here in White River National Forest. Much to my delight, Maroon Bells does not disappoint. It has perfect fall foliage right now and has just like that epic symmetrical view that I think really stirs everyone's hearts for beauty, and I'm just so excited to share it with you. The beauty here has just been everything I expected it to be, and I'm just so glad that I came. In fact, it's been so good that what I was going to have be about a 4-day trip, I'm going to shorten into probably a 3-day trip and go home tomorrow.
When I returned to my campsite, I made dinner, and I'd actually decided to car camp again as opposed to being in my tent. It was really cold, and also I just kind of felt a little eerie. I didn't feel quite as welcome in this place. The campers didn't seem as friendly or hospitable. They weren't talking to me, and it kind of made me nervous. And also some of the campers around me, they just had some dodgy vibes, and I didn't know if I necessarily was going to be safe there. So even though I settled into my sleeping bag, my new very warm and cozy sleeping bag, I decided to flee my campsite in the middle of the night. the opposite of what I wanted to do the night before. And so I made my way to Carbondale, Colorado again, only to find they had no hotels available. I drove on to Glenwood Springs and it was the same story. I don't know if everyone was there to see the aspens, like I'm not sure what was going on, but there wasn't a single hotel available anywhere. And so I just thought I would go up the interstate and sleep at a rest stop, which sounded really dangerous too, but I didn't know what my options were at that point. So I found a rest stop that had a lot of other cars in it, other campers it seemed, people in camper vans with RVs, people with their windows covered, and I decided that would be the rest stop. And so I stopped there, covered all of my windows with tinfoil because I didn't have anything else to cover my windows with, and tried to sleep. But I was not very successful. Sleep was so hard because it was cold and I was terrified. I don't know if it was anxiety or intuition, but it was not a fun feeling. I was waking up multiple times. I don't think I slept longer than maybe 40 minutes or so, and I wasn't sleeping well because I was waking up scared. Someone would knock on the door and try to rob me or worse. And so I decided, forget it. I'm not sleeping anyway. I'm just going to drive home. So I ripped all the tinfoil off my windows, started the car, and headed down the interstate. I was driving into Denver by dawn, and with the help of Brene Brown and Annie F. Downs podcasts, I was awake and alert, and I was given good company by them, and eventually made my way back home to Kansas. Now at this point you might be asking yourself, Emma, why is this a stock photography fail? Because I did get a lot of really good pictures on the trip, and it was easy to get beautiful pictures. But the thing is, I didn't really have a shot list in mind. I didn't have a plan for what pictures I wanted to get. And so I came home and was like, man, I did get pretty pictures, but they're just kind of lacking. So next time I would definitely come prepared. I would do some research and see like what kind of other stock photography people get when they go to these areas so that I have a better handle on what I would want to get, and then everything on top of that would just be bonus. Also, I would 100% bring my dog with me because she makes me feel so much safer, and a very large can of mace, no doubt. So hopefully you enjoyed this somewhat interesting, at times scary, and at times funny telling of my camping stock photography journey. And again, please don't tell my mom about this. Also, I'm curious if you are someone who does stock photography, what your respective adventures have looked like. If you liked this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you like my channel, don't hesitate to subscribe.